We are recording with the one and only Mr. Jeffrey Prather on Friday, September 20th at 2024 at 11:06 a.m. Eastern time. You've been on here a million times before. The link to all of your books, as well as your Twitter and your podcast, is in the description, and every other thing I'm forgetting to mention, it's all there. But we were just talking about uh SF and SEALs, and I was gonna say there's a obviously I never served. Um, so it's always so funny when Dale, who is, Delta at 23, he'll sometimes, like, he'll say to me in casual conversation, he'll be like, "You know how Navy SEALs are bitches?" And I'll be like, "Dale, I can't comment on that." "You can, Dale, you can.
Yeah.
Tom Brady can talk down to, I don't know, John Elway, but as someone that doesn't know how to throw a football, I'm like, I can't." So Dale will be like, "You know how SEAls are like kind of pussies?" And I'll be like, You can, say that, man, but go for it." He'll be like, "They're not as hardcore as Delta." I'm like, "Dude, I don't, I'd get beat up by a mall cop." But yeah, that's what you were just kind of saying. But Mr. Prather, for all the people that maybe who don't know you, introduce yourself, please, and then we'll just jump on right on into it.
Well, I agree with Dale, and I've had Dale on, and it's funny because when I have somebody like that on, we always try and, hey, do you know, and Gary Noble, I served with Gary Noble. He goes, Gary Noble, that was my mentor, American Warrior. So that
Yeah.
was, old home week. We started talking, but yeah, so I'm a retired Army officer. I was military intelligence. I went straight into SOCOM. As a second lieutenant because I was already airborne qualified, became that as a cadet, went into psychological operations. Fourth PSYOPs group, I commanded a operational detachment, not an A team, an operational detachment that attached to Special Forces and Rangers. Jumped into Central and South America, worked with the Contras, saw the CIA Contra cartel of death built by the Clintons, saw that go wrong, and actually was had to be questioned about that, but we were doing everything we were supposed to. Before the Panama invasion, got recruited by, I was at Fort Sherman, I was in seventh group by then, and another captain was training a long hair team, thought it was CIA, it was DEA snowcap. So they grabbed me. I left active duty as a captain, became a Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, firearms instructor, and snowcap special operator in the 90s, went back to Central and South America. At the same time, I was recruited into a special operations intelligence unit that at the first time, it was called FOG, Foreign Operations Group. Later became Operations Group, later became the Foreign Intelligence Activity. Later on went on to become other things, and then it split again, and I went into the to the Defense Intelligence Agency's Human Services branch. So I also was a Fast and Furious whistleblower. I was dual credentialed simultaneously as a DEA special agent under the DOJ and a DI intelligence officer under the DOD. And so I saw a lot of corruption. I was fired by the DEA 1 year from retirement without ever having a bad evaluation, without ever being charged, without ever being convicted, because I outed the DEA's Fast and Furious relationship with the Sinaloa cartel to run drugs north in exchange for the Fast and Furious guns going south, which came out in evidence in the Niebla Zambada trial, which you can look up. So now I expose government corruption because I have a good understanding. Because I've worked, a lot of people say crazy things because they've watched too many movies, but because I've worked in these areas, I can give people a good approximation of what's going on. Like with the Trump, with Butler, I immediately, because I've done several, lots of dignitary protection, foreign heads of state, federal judges, Santorum, when he was running for president, I immediately could tell that the Secret Service was in on that, the FBI was in on, and there was aerial surveillance, and those have all now been proven true. So there's a summation of my background.
And successful podcaster, man. It's and then and then I mean, how do you get close to the Trump golf course? How do you get? It's just the lapse in security is so. Again, the analogy I always use is it's not that this guy was trying to kill me, where he could probably go hang out in a neighboring building for a year and scope me out and probably be able to get me when I go get groceries. This is the former president, billionaire. Like, this is not someone whose property you just for forget, go prior to 2016. Get close to any billionaire. Get on their property. I've had guys that Dan Libby, I think Air Force OSI, is one of my first guests. He does protection for just like low-level celebrities. And the amount of detail and tiers of security and airtight surveillance is already beyond the scope of anything that would prevent what we just saw at the golf course. Again, let alone a billionaire ex-president who's also who is the Republican nominee for the current election. The only thing you can come close to is you have to at this point it's willful ignorance. You want to be asleep to look away and say the current intelligence military apparatus is not complicit in this. They are absolutely.
Well, the Butler lapse is as much as a lapse as Afghanistan withdrawal was, as much as a lapse as October 7th was, as
Correct.
much as a lapse of Benghazi was. These are not failures. These are planned, in my view. And again, I gave my credentials to show that I've been in covert operations my entire career, that these are planned, willful covert operations by corrupt government entities, which are the Praetorians that really decide where the power is. And the FBI and the CIA work for themselves. The FBI
Mhm.
doesn't manage crime. The FBI doesn't solve crime, it manages crime. The FBI doesn't solve terrorism, it manages terrorism. The CIA doesn't collect intelligence, it collects people and runs psychological operations. And so they're with whomever is going to promote them at this point. And they're totally unaccountable under the executive branch. And I know I knew the agents that, for example, would go to the DE agents who would go and talk to Congress when Congress wanted something. And they're like, we're not going to give it to them. We don't have to. They don't have access because all the enforcement is under the executive branch. So the Butler was definitely planned, and the Secret Service and the FBI were in on it. I said that from the beginning. It's all being borne out. The second attempt at the golf course, there was a sharp Secret Service agent who saw the barrel, and fired. But how does that happen is by you just weaken the entire structure. And that's what we've seen since Biden came in, is the destruction of police and military. The cops are cucked and the troops are trannied. And that was the plan. And so last time I checked, most federal law enforcement agencies, and I've known a lot of these guys, because I was a DEA firearms instructor, so I shot a lot and taught a lot at the FBI Quantico range, where Secret Service had come and HRT'd come, and HMX-1 Marines are there. Is all these agencies are about a 50 to 60% strength. Most of the guys who were serious like me got out. They were either fired or forced or retired because the environment, is all DEI trannies and ESG wokettes. Nobody wants to do that with those kind of people. So that's how it has become so lax. But, hats off to the Secret Service guy who immediately fired. And he was advancing as he should have been. So there should be 3 concentric rings of security, and he's probably on the outermost ring. And he went to the next hole ahead of time and saw the rifle barrel poking out. And no professional, I'm sure you've had lots of money, no professional would poke their rifle barrel out. But that in itself is very telling because the deep state, the Praetorians, are running out of puppets.
Mm.
So whether you're a DEA special agent running confidential informants, now called confidential human sources, or you're a DIA or CIA case officer running agents, you operate on human capital that you recruit. And that gives you access to take and hold human terrain. And that's the only way that works. And the FBI is an intelligence agency with law enforcement functions. It's not a law enforcement agency. But to do that, you have to have some kind of integrity. So I worked very high level CIs, and I put 2 of them in WITSEC and Witness Protection Program. And I could certainly never pay. I mean, my big CI that got me in trouble, I was paying him $250,000 payments. I didn't want to. I wanted to pay him $10,000 payments, but the head of the DEA made me pay $250,000 payments because she wanted to destroy the case. But even that, the lifetime cap for a DEA informant is $250,000, which shows you they're not serious. Because if you want to run a really high level informant, $250,000 is nothing for those guys. So what could I offer these guys? What I could offer these guys was, I'm never going to betray you, and I'm never going to come after your kids. Now, is that worth $250,000? Yeah, that's worth. If you're finding yourself, guys who are threatening your kids and threatening your life, and you can't trust, and every time you turn around, yeah, that's how I worked it. But now, where these are immoral, ungodly, satanic folks, the best they can get, it looks like, after Butler, because there were a lot of, I say there were, I don't think Crooks was even on the roof. I think it was Urich. I don't think he fired a shot. I think there was at least 3 snipers, because you want to, a triangulation like with JFK of the kill box. And those guys were pretty sharp, not sharp enough, but pretty sharp. I think there was suppressed fire. But when we get to the golf course, you get this clown, with his blue hair and his, going to Ukraine, and because that's all they've got left.
Yeah.
That's what they've got to that's their human capital bank is running dry. And because they have no integrity, so they have no authenticity. And so they don't want to, like my biggest CI, I said, I'll WITSEC you. He goes, no, thanks. I'm not going to that program, because he trusted me, but he didn't trust the program. And I like, okay, got that, And even to today, where he's written books and he's in the newspaper, I will still not give up his name, because that's my guarantee of integrity and authenticity now. So that's why they're losing. And that's how I look at those last 2. And there was assassination attempts before that. There were several. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. But that's not even why they're going after Trump, to get Trump, I think.
That you don't think that the assassin? Wait, clarify that.
Well, so Trump has said this himself: is they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. But he does represent the folks. Trump was a deep state guy. Trump hung out with the Clintons, and until Trump saw the good thing about Trump is he sees a good business deal, and he looked at the American people and say, they are sick of this shit.
Yeah.
Because back in the day when I was doing lots of speeches, I'm speaking tomorrow in Texas, by the way, but I don't do a lot of those anymore. But I was talking about Cruz. I'm like, he's a Christian, he's a constitutionalist, he's a conservative. And they're like, no, Trump. And I'm like, why? He goes, because he ain't a politician. And so I listened to my audience, and he has really, through the wrestling thing, wrestling is blue collar, is as blue collar as you can get, but he saw a good thing, and he said, I'm switching sides. And there's a lot of self-interest there, but there's a lot of self-sacrifice there too. But mostly it's who's shooting at him. So the first time I came under fire in the Las Vegas salient on the border of Honduras and Nicaragua, I'm riding around with my counterparts in red and white Toyota Hiluxes, because you couldn't fit Hummers inside CH-47s, which was a great design feature. And so we're getting shot at. And so that really solidifies my belief that my indigenous counterparts are on my side, because we're getting shot at together. So why do I support Trump? Because he's getting shot at. Why do I support Flynn with all his problems? He's getting shot at too. I know what they've been through, and they've both been through worse than I have. And mine was pretty bad. Yeah. So, but what they're trying to do now, I digressed, but what they're trying to do now, I think, is to so enrage, so in your face the American people, that the American people will emotionally react
Mm-hmm.
as the J6ers did, as the Brazilians did, as the Venezuelans did. And then you get the next EPs, who in my day was Ollie North, and said, "Come on, let's surge," and then you surge into wherever, and they geolocate you and geofence you. And then everybody kind of wanders around like a, because it's an unorganized movement that was led by infiltrators, and they wander around, and some of them are a little violent, and some of them aren't violent at all. But they tried to do that later. Remember that one at the Capitol where it was all feds? There were feds arresting cops.
Yeah.
So they aren't going to fall for that one anymore. But if they can kill Trump, and then they can instigate something there, they can hit two birds with one stone. First of all, they can really crack down with DHS and FBI even more on the American people. And secondly, wherever they arrange the surge, they can then, after the surge recedes, they just geofence, geolocate, and they just start wrapping them up yet again. That's what I think they're really doing here.
Trying to get an emotional response. Yeah, because it's in a way, and it's again, you have to respect the enemy. In a way, it's intelligent because it's so they got to take out Trump. He's standing in the way to get to the people. Well, if you could just get the people to react violently, then you can go directly out of the people. You no longer have to you no longer have to sack the quarterback. So you just go, go somewhere else and find a way to circumvent.
Well, so, in my dojo, I would always take a young guy, teenager, younger than you, and I'd push him, and then he'd come back in, and I say, "Who's controlling this fight?" And I probably told you that story before, so I won't continue.
No, you haven't. No, yeah.
Okay, so in my, I always wanted to get young guys to teach them how to become protectors, not predators, and so I do the typical, macho ritual violence thing, which is the more separated you get, the louder you get. The closer you get, the quieter you get. That's what kids do. But I shove the kid, and he starts to come back in. I'm like, "Now who's controlling this fight?" And he goes, "I am." I'm like, "Nope, think about it for a second." He goes, "Oh, you are, because I'm reacting." Yeah, I mean, you're coming right into where. And so another thing I teach is lean in. So I'll go like this. So then, where do you want to hit me? You want to hit me right here.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm controlling your attack.
Yeah.
I'm controlling the whole thing. So then I say, "Shove me." And so he shoves me. I turn around, walk away into the bathroom, spread some soap on the floor, turn the light off, grab the trash can.
Yeah.
And when he walks in, his eyes aren't adjusted. He slips on the soap, and I hit him in the head with the trash can, stomp on his neck, on the ground, close the bathroom door, clean my hands, and walk off and walk out.
Yeah.
So that's controlling the fight. But most people watch too many stupid movies, and they just react. Yeah, they're just Trump rallies and MAGA rallies, and they don't understand the fight. The intelligence agencies, including the FBI, Behavioral Sciences Unit, which I used to walk down into all the time, have figured out how to manipulate and activate the American people en masse. And that's exactly what they are doing. And so I'm trying to get the message out is to don't play their game. And so on an individual CI level, Americans are turning away from that, so much so that the other day, a couple Phoebes came up to somebody's house, and they wouldn't even show their creds, if you saw that.
Yeah,
so, so the badge, my badge was always with my gun. Even if it was on my ankle, my badge was there, so that when you see the gun, you see the badge. That's for quick identification. Or, if you're doing a raid, you want to be, kitted out where it says DEA or police or whatever. But the creds are for when you're going to talk to somebody to authenticate who you are. But the interesting thing about that was they would not show their creds.
Yeah.
So that means we don't really have any integrity or authenticity, and we're afraid to expose ourselves, as opposed to, hey, I'm a legit, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, which nobody believes anymore. The Indians have been saying this for 20 years, and I should have listened better when I was on the reservation to them. But this is an indication that they are continuing to lose this fight, and they are fading. And when you don't, and when you can't gain any human capital, and your whole strategy is wrapped up in human capital to take human terrain, you can't win.
Mm,
You can be oppressive, you can kill people, but you cannot win.
yeah. And yeah, so it as they're sort of, yeah, I mean, no one trusts that they're there to help, but there is a level of, I don't know if decorum's the right word. There's a level of, guess, you know, c- civility, for lack of a better term. There's a level of civility. You show up with the badge, and this is what we're doing. We're not monkeys in the jungle killing each other with rocks. It's like, even if it is the government, it's the FBI, no one trusts them. There's still a level of like respect, for like, lack of a better word.
Well, among those who don't know, there
Sure,
is.
sure. But my
And
point
that's
is
and that comes from all the TV shows and all the movies, and but for those of us inside the law enforcement community, the FBI were never the
no,
top dogs.
no, no,
They
no, no.
were they were I knew FBI agents who had never cuffed anybody ever.
No,
They
they're
were
awful.
white
They're
collar
awful
guys.
people. They're not real men. I'm saying,
No,
like,
some of them are. So again, Ed Morales, hero of
sure,
the Miami gunfight, my friend, did undercover for me.
yeah,
He's as badass as they come.
sure,
He's been on my cast many times
yeah,
telling that story.
no, he's
But
a great guy.
but in general, the FBI, the image that the FBI projects to civilians is not inside the law enforcement. It's just like like we were talking before the show. The SEALs image to the civilians is the SEALs. Inside the community, it's like the SEALs again. Oh my God, you know.
The
Not that there aren't good SEALs.
Sure, no. I guess the point I'm making is, like, somebody did, like when I was in college, I worked at, just like a college bar, and you just deal with, you know drove 21-year-old. I was 21, but you frat guys who are just low. Like, it is what it is. You're dealing with just sloppy people. When someone at least would have shoes and a shirt on, and no matter how drunk they were, they'd still pull out the ID, and there was still, even if it was like three brain cells, there was some level of, you're entering an establishment and you have to show me an ID. It's like a little rain dance. You got to pull out the piece of plastic. I look it over and you come in. No matter how drunk they are, there was like a level of, you have to at least do this. You have to put the square ball, or the squared thing in the square hole. It's basic, but you might go, well, then, if it's so simple, what's the point of even doing it? Because there are people so drunk, they're missing a shoe, their shirt's torn in half, they have blood on their ear, and they're trying to get by you. You're going, ID, and it doesn't matter if they're 30. If they can't even do that basic, like, here's the ID, even if they're doing the whole one eye closed and like wobbling, then you go, okay, well, you can't even come in, man. It's a college bar at UGA on a Friday night. Like, we have a pretty low threshold of entry, but you, my friend, can't come in because even you can't do that. That's what I mean. Is, so by not even like showing the ID, it's like,
Yes.
even if they're demons from hell and they're subverting the Constitution, but there's still like a level of entry. And when they won't show you the ID, you're like, dog, you can't come in here, man.
So is there a way for me to share my screen with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Here,
Oh yeah?
I'll give you permission. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So how do I do that? Let's see. Tell me.
There should be you're on, so on the bottom of your screen, you should see a green button. Should be like
Yep,
highlighted green.
share.
So share, press share, and then it
There we
will show
go.
you like all the different,
There we go. That's
applications.
easy.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. You got that?
Mm-hmm. Just a guy doing a backflip.
That's the FBI agent.
Oh yeah, and he fires the gun. Yeah.
There's the gun going off.
Yeah.
That is the FBI.
There you go. Yeah. No, that's good point. Yeah. So it's like, so it is kind of interesting then, though, when we're talking about like the general rot, right? Like how you rot these institutions from the inside. Why does the guy get on the roof in Butler? Well, because it was a coordinated attack. Why does the guy get on the golf course? Because it's the institutional rot. Why do you have like the woman in Butler trying to holster her gun and she can't? It does kind of go both ways then, right? But it also means, so it's like they're rotting the institutions, but they're also rotting their own assets. So they don't
Yeah, they are.
have, some Dale guy on,
No,
ready for
no,
Black
you're
Ops.
not. They're not going to get any more Dales.
No, 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 because those are God-fearing good men with ethics and morals, and they go, no. They're now getting people who, you know, are blue hair, nipple piercing, Slava Ukraini. They've never had a coherent thought in their life. They're
Yeah.
getting them who also don't know how to use guns,
Well, so
let
I will
alone.
take that back because I know. So we were talking about PJs before the show, and retired Master Chief, good friend of mine, who was the PJ of the year, most senior PJ. His son just went into the X-ray program, the SF X-ray, which is where you can go in. In my day, you couldn't go straight into SF. You had to be an officer, a captain or a sergeant. But now you can sign up if you can make the cut. So half of SF now is X-ray, which means they're very young. They're not the old time 30, 33-year-old, married with a couple of kids. So they've got to mature that force, and SF realizes that and is talking about doing that. I don't know if you've had anybody on to talk about that, but part of you should, because part of the problem with the SEALs is they're all very young, and so they're all hormonal and they're all muscles, and as we were talking before the show, where Dale was saying
Yeah.
they're
So
wimps. I'll change his language,
yeah.
but so I'm not really interested in bad mouthing anybody, but
No, sure, of course not.
I've had many, and again, I don't have those credentials, but I have had guys on who do, like for example, well, I'm not even going to say who, but I will say some special forces guys who were in the Kush and had to climb mountains, and the 6 guys could not hack it. They had to leave them in base camp. They were too muscled up. They could not do the mountain climbing, and the mission was to get up the mountain. You
Mm,
know, um, not to have big muscles.
mm,
And the ones that could, if you read Relentless Strike, The Secret History of JSOC by Naylor, you can see where there's a green guy, blue guy, and an orange guy, and they have to go through a snowstorm, and they can make it, but the blue guy, bitches and whines the whole time. So when they have to go back, they don't take the blue guy,
mm.
which reduces their force, because a 3-man team is certainly a much better security element than a 2-man team. Um, so, but that's, diving much deeper than the general public,
Sure.
unfortunately, ever goes. And these corrupt Praetorians play on that, constantly. And that's how they're surviving.
And then for kind of what we were talking about yesterday on the phone and what you said earlier about, they're trying to get people to emotionally react. Well, how does one differentiate between emotional reaction and so I always say on the show because it's in compliance with like the platforms I'm on. It's like you can't incite
Right.
violence, right? So if someone comes on and they're like, you guys should all show up to Nancy Pelosi's, I legally have to like on camera be like, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. Same thing as when I worked at a liquor store. Sometimes like some older women would come in and they'd be like, do we have to show you our IDs? By asking that, you actually now legally have to, because if they're working as cops, and by
Yeah.
now saying, do I have to show you my ID?
Yeah.
Now you actually have to show me your ID. And just as an aside, whenever like an older woman would come in, you always ask them for their ID because it makes their day. But like they'd be like, do we have to show you your ID? Well, now you legally have to say yes, you do, because I don't know if you're wearing a fucking microphone. So excuse my French, but like, so if somebody says something on my show that it's inciting violence, I now have to go out of my way and be a Boy Scout and be like, Tommy's podcast does not endorse violence. Like, I legally have to do that because I don't know who's watching, or I don't know, am I going to be in some courtroom one day where this is played back? So,
No, that's why you hear me say endlessly, I'm not
not inciting
advocating
violence is
illegal, immoral,
not
unethical, or violent, although the
exactly,
left does continue blatantly and openly. And I mean, I
exactly.
just intersperse that to wherever there'd be a transcript. And I'm real familiar, by the way, with my transcripts being altered because they were when
Yeah.
they came after me. So I'm always am placing that in there. But another phenomena, that I think affirms my assessment of the enemy's state, because that's my whole job as
Hmm.
America's intelligence officer, is to triage and assess the battle space and the enemy, that they're really in trouble, is the Tucson Trump rally from last week. where there were people who had blindness and eye issues. Now, some people thought that that was Havana syndrome microwave. I'm on the Targeted Justice Board. I didn't think so. They said, don't think so. Some people said it might be lasers. That could be. I got the U.S. Marshals Special Operations Group in Portland anti-laser glasses because those guys were getting blind. That's one of my little helps. I think they'll help me get into heaven. But because they were like, well, I've never seen these before. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't we have these? I'm because you're with the government.
Yeah.
And so they got them. But last week there, the audience was attacked, not Trump. And I think it was the cartels. And the reason is because way back in the 90s, when I was doing multi-100-kilo cocaine seizures, once you seize it, you got to process it. So you got to take out of A through J, you got to sample to give a good sampling that it's all cocaine, and you send it off to the lab and everything. So, you're working with all these 1 kilo really nice bundles that are exact and they got the scorpion sticker on them and everything. And so I was opening them and there was a red substance in there and I went temporarily blind. And I think that was a cartel insurance technique or a warning. It didn't permanently damage me because they learned their lesson from Camarena back in the day when we were serious. Because when they tortured and killed Camarena, all the stops came. That's why I joined DEA, because I'm like, these guys are badass. They just, everybody flew in. They took his partner out of a police station at gunpoint. I'm like, these guys that's when they were for real, when DEA was the real deal. But I think it's probably a cartel thing. This cartel is all over, Tucson, Phoenix. But the interesting thing is, and they may have been contacted by the government to do that because the government's helping them transport drugs and kids and women and everything else. But the interesting thing about that is their corruption has made them so incompetent that they can't hit Trump to activate the masses because they just can't do it. They're getting this Ruth clown that now they are targeting the audience. And so to me, that looks like desperation.
Sure. And that's like the only thing I've been able to find in this is, what do we make of these attempts? And for me, it's just to my DNA that I have to find the silver lining because I'll just get depressed and want to die. So I have to do it. Those aren't the actions of a confident regime. They're not good, but no part of it's good. I'm not saying it's good. But for the same reason as as the wonder weapons got crazier and crazier under Hitler, I'm sure if someone was like, this is a good thing, they'd probably, give you a black eye. But in the grand scheme of things, it is a good thing. It means they're getting desperate. What that also means is they're getting desperate and will do anything. And if they're willing to take off Trump's head at a speech in front of his family, they're willing to do the same to you. And I don't know. So I'm oscillating back and forth between.
Well, that's a great point. So let me address that point.
Sure.
So the JFK assassination, which was most likely 3 sniper teams, read, if you haven't, go read Fry the Brain. The message there. So the real force multiplier of sniping is psychological operations. It's a psyop. In the jungle, you shoot one soldier and you pin down a battalion. That's force multiplication. That's why PsyOps is in SOCOM. That's how I got into SOCOM, in PsyOps. So it's not the one guy or the one bullet. It's the force multiplication. The same thing with COVID. It wasn't COVID. It was the PsyOp that went with it. But when you miss, as they did in Butler, and I say not once, but multiple times with suppressed weapons, maybe 3 or 4 times, and then you can't even shoot on the golf course, the psychological effect is reversed totally. And these guys are not giants or geniuses. They're failures with father wounds, and they are fallible and they are beatable. And this kind of goes to the Goliath story where Goliath says, why do you approach me with your staff in your hand? And people always have David with the little sling. No, we had a trebuchet. He had a shepherd sling. He had his staff and his leather sling, which he put together to be a portable trebuchet, and said, I've killed bears and lions at distance, and I can do you too, and I'm going to do you, and I'm going to cut your head off. And so the message here is they are really incompetent, and we don't have to step in line. And what that looks like is not reacting to them emotionally. It's simply not cooperating with them. Because as that guy who didn't cooperate with the 2 FBI agents, he's going to go then vote for his local sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to ask eventually, when I get the word out enough, he's going to go, well, are you on federal task forces, and are you working with the FBI? Because if you are, I'm not going to vote for you. Because everybody wants to do the constitutional sheriff thing, and here's the lowdown. I just got a call the other day. Was, hey, you want to have Mac on your show? I'm like, I know Mac. What's he done? I didn't say no. I just said, what's he done besides raise money? That was the end of that call. No one ever got me. It was just a legitimate thing. If I'm wrong, but all I've seen him do, and when I've talked to him, is raise money.
Who's Mac?
Sheriff Mac. He was a sheriff. He is and so he's just a fundraising guy, like Lamb, and all his kit and his cowboy hat and everything. There's some constitutional sheriffs out there, but most of them are patriot mongers, just like most priests and pastors are Christ mongers. They're selling, get your hot Jesus, get your hot patriotism right here. Send me your money. So eventually, as that resistance builds, that's going to translate to the sheriff level. And the sheriff is going to like, well, I love that task force money, but first I got to be elected to spend it. So am I going to choose the G, the task force money, the JTTF, HIDA, OSIDF, TEAT, or am I going to choose to be elected? So what's the first rule of every politician?
Get elected.
Get reelected.
Oh, get reelected, yeah.
So that is building the resistance.
And then, so like one thing I remember seeing right after the, not the mugshot last summer, but the conviction or the 30, whatever it was earlier this year, it was actually kind of interesting. You'd see it on Twitter, a lot of the people I followed, and you'd see things like, I will not Fed post, or people would just be like, don't react. And I thought that was actually very interesting, that you saw people who I know who they are, and like I know and they're good people, but they'd be like, you'd see people saying like, hey, put your phone down for 12 hours. Don't react. And that is very interesting to me. Even after, Butler, it was people would share what people on the left were saying is, I hope they killed him. But even after something as like emotionally visceral as that, people are still saying like, don't say something on Twitter or Facebook in the next 12 hours that you're going to regret for the next 12 years.
Yeah.
And
no, they're getting the message.
No. And people are, it's not to be like, geez, but if you don't kill it, it makes it stronger. So the immune system's building. And then I think what you do have is you have people who say, well, we're doing nothing. We're just all sitting around going, don't react, which is a valid criticism. That's not how you can win anything. But what they want is they do want you to react. They want you to say, all patriots, get your guns and show up on that. They want that because then they can crack down. And the majority of people would agree with the state for cracking down. If a bunch of patriots showed up with guns and started, assaulting people, yeah, you'd probably be like, that's not civility. So,
well, let me respond to that. So first off, because that's a great point, is first off, with the mugshot, again, taking it as I was PSYOP officer first. So they arrest him, they mugshot him. And what happens with the mugshot?
It's the dumbest thing they could have done. It's like Tank Man in Tiananmen Square.
He turns, just like Twitter, he turns, it's a successful Trump PSYOP.
Yeah.
And then with the Butler thing, the photo, and they're like, so these are the intelligence guys who've done MK Ultra, who have, put wires into people's brains. And they're like, we've got all this figured out. Our tech works. And they keep failing. They keep missing completely. So, and it's not doing nothing. For example, on my cast, the Prather point, I assess all this stuff all the time, like we're doing, and thanks for helping me do that. And you're a young guy doing that. Um, and then I have Team America. You want to get involved? Team America behind the scenes, very quiet. You never hear about us directly, but for example, the Arizona election integrity, we were all over the place. You saw us, but you didn't see us because, and there's no 501c3, there's no structure, it's all volunteers, but the talent pool is enormous.
Hmm.
And we're all over the place. And so we're building so as the regime collapses, the resistance is rising, and we're building the structure of resistance in plain sight, kind of like think of the French resistance or the Polish resistance. Um, so it's not that a lot of people are doing very dramatic things, and they're doing valid things. They're trying to go to court, and they should. Marley
Sure.
Hornick in New York is doing, great work. Ivan Raiklin, who I know looks like he's kind of just promoting himself. He just put out his, American legend, Texas icon or something. And so I posted a Green Beret horse soldier and said, here's a real American icon legend, by the way. And it's talking about the Office of Retribution and actually inciting for a supposedly SF guy. He does not seem to understand unconventional warfare, but came on the show, talked about it.
Sure.
So that's my contribution, is to delve deeply into this to show what should be happening. And so all of this should be privately happening with your neighbors and, with your local PD and SO and FD and medical, and building all that as the regime continues to erode. That's really, so it's not doing nothing. And somebody sent me a thing a while back where Joel Altman or something, and a couple of guys were saying they don't like me, which is fine because there's a line around the block. If you don't like me, if you want to criticize me, make an appointment. I can get to you in 2027. Until then, I'm booked. But they were like, yeah, his thing, I can't remember what it is, which is great. They couldn't even remember the name of Team America. And it's too, nobody knows who they are. I'm like, yeah.
Perfect.
And so, because they're thinking it has to be some kind of big MAGA rally. And that's
Mhm.
not at all. That was never what I was about when I was low profile. And that's not what I'm about now in Team America. So it is the outside mission and the inside mission as well. And so that's what people need to be doing, whether they're doing it with me or not. But Team America is doing it really well. Because you don't want to be targeted. That's why I say Team America is not militia. Not that there's anything wrong with militia. Actually, it's not. But militia is a key word that's been targeted, and militia gives you this image of these fat hillbilly guys with the sleeves cut off, that don't know what they're doing, which is oftentimes the case. And they're also very vulnerable. The Wolverines, they watched Red Dawn too many times.
Yeah.
And I think some of them were kind of mentally challenged, maybe, because that's the FBI's favorite target.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's there's there's like I don't know, there's not an idea or a concept. I've just been trying to like play with in my head, and I haven't figured it out well because I can't put it into words simply. And if if you understand something well, you should be able to explain it simply. So by definition, I don't think I understand it well enough. But just in terms of like general themes and reading about history and weaponry, the best I can kind of formulate it is like the more widespread, there seems to be a theme that the more widespread force projection is over a larger percentage of the population, be it the country or the planet, the thinner it is and the more easily punctured it is. So, for instance, if I'm, in a town in rural Maine with 1,000 people and I want to enact tyranny, yeah, I'll go get Dale a couple guys, some armored, some APCs and some guns. I can probably turn that into, a hellscape. You want to do it to the whole world, it becomes much more difficult. You can't spread the entire army, the entire armed forces all over the world. Doesn't matter how many aircraft carriers you have. I mean, eventually, imagine trying to fight Korea, Vietnam, and GWAT all at the same time while funding Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. It can't be done. So, but what you can do is you have something like a force multiplier, like the internet, like cell phones, to where you can increase the psyop to where people feel helpless, they feel hopeless.
Yeah, you're
And
exactly right. That's it.
so you can project it farther. You can't put an Abrams tank in every town on Earth, but via your phone, you can make people feel pretty helpless. Now, when you can spread something that thin, that also means it has almost no resistance. It can't take a punch. An Abrams tank, you can walk up to it with your shotgun. It ain't doing nothing. You're doing nothing. But if the veneer is just, you know, there is a, I don't know, let's say an armed checkpoint at an intersection, you're not going through that checkpoint. You're in a little Civic and there's some Humvees, you're not going through it. If the checkpoint is just a red stoplight, well, that's a social agreement. The red light's not actually stopping me. I can go through it if I want. Nothing's actually happening. So it's the way I look at it is, I mean, it's the F-117. It's a stealth bomber. It can carry 2 bombs, but if it can't be detected, it's incredibly powerful. If any part of it is like chipped or dented, the radar return comes in, and then it's just an ugly plane with 2 bombs on it, and it has no power. So what I'm viewing is it's a charade. It's
It
a
is.
it's a
It
not
totally is.
charade. It's a facade of, you feel like, man, the U.S. government has total, omnipotence over the earth. Well, when the power, yeah, the White House, they do. Don't go at the White House, you'll get shot. But when the power is projected through your phone, where it just says 99% of people think Donald Trump's gay, and you go, I think this is just pixels on a screen, and you look around and you go, if they say new presidential edict, stay at home orders, well, I don't see anyone guarding my door. I'm gonna go outside. The more they try to wrap the earth with it, the more they extend their forces, the thinner and thinner it gets.
Yep.
And I
That's right.
think that's where we are as people, the average person, not someone like you who's experiencing this, but the average person like me are just
Yeah.
starting to observe it and go, I don't think they can enforce this. What are they really going to do if I don't wear a mask outside? And I think
Well,
that's where we
the
are.
the one counterpart, one of my biggest selling products,
The Faraday bags. Yeah.
there, you're done.
Zip.
But most people don't think of that.
The
I even
NSA can hack everything.
yeah,
Not if there are no signals.
right.
They are signals
Or just leave it,
intelligence.
And
Yeah,
so
we're just
one of the
tossed
basic
behind you.
SOPs is, yeah, you can navigate to your TA meeting by phone, then pass it by, just like false insertions, and then stop a couple places, then turn it off, and then go back to your
Yeah.
original, bag it up,
Yeah.
bag it up, and then go back. But you said something interesting about bombing, and that ties into what's going on in Lebanon with the Shin Bet pagers and walkie-talkies is very interesting too. And so they're killing, they're hitting some of the cell, which is okay. And the Zionists are going to love that, and the techies are going to love that. And there are micro blasting caps with some kind of, they've modified some kind of plastic
Mm-hmm.
C4 not to be picked up. I think it's through Telerim, Shin Bet, and that's very common for intelligence agencies. Always infiltrate all your communications devices.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a standard stop in the
Yeah.
manufacturer. Okay, here's the spy. Now put the stuff
And then
in.
here's the back door. Yeah.
Yeah, but when it comes down to it, it's still bombing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just little bombs, and they're just not dropping from the sky.
Yeah.
And except for nuclear warfare on the one time of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and it didn't even work the first bomb. It had to be the second bomb to break the resistance of the government by killing civilians, women and children. But except for nuclear warfare, bombing always builds resistance.
Yes.
It
It
never
always strengthens the
reduces,
will.
never reduces resistance. And Hitler bombing London is obvious of that. So what the corrupt Israeli government is really trying to do is continue to foment and build resistance in the Middle East to get the US and everybody into there, because Ukraine is waning. But that's also going to come. So that's statement number one, is they're not trying to wipe them out. They're trying to, and they've also killed civilians and innocents in that as well, because bombing always kills. So the only way to not kill is to take a spec ops team with surgical shooting skills and go in there and shoot the terrorist and not shoot the kid and give the kid a candy bar. You
Yeah.
know, that's what it takes. Always boots on the ground. Never bombs. Bombs are indiscriminate, no matter how small, no matter how cool. But that's another psyop to incite the Middle East. And those are going to come just as the Ukraine biolabs, bioweapons came to America in the form of the COVID psyop, and whatever else, monkeypox or whatever it is this week. Those little bomblets are coming too, but it's not the bombs, it's the psyop again. But again, that's going to build the resistance more.
Yeah.
So I don't see how they win. There's no way I see how they win this, because their whole thing is big, world domination through tech.
They're way too. You're way too cocky. It's like, go to any, like, like a lot of my family lives in like the mountains in northern New Hampshire. I went to college in Valdosta, Georgia, and like southern Georgia, like, and all these places, like, you totally understand like rural resistance. You're like, these guys know. You get someone from an area, they'll tell you like the best place to go eat. But when you get someone who's been there for generations, yeah, they know how they would, like, without even any like training, you'd be like, yeah, like my buddy Grant in Valdosta, he was from Coffee County, Georgia. He had a pet deer named Jesus. Like, he literally had a pet with the dog collar. Jesus, come over. You come over and you're like, what am I looking at? And he had an alligator named Elvis. That's a guy who you go, he could wage an insurgency. Because he knows every, don't touch that.
Right.
That's poison. You pick up this dirt. This is good for this. You're like, everything. You also know where to put a bomb. You know where to put a gun. And it would take an entire, the National Guard to overthrow Coffee County because Grant and his dad are there.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you look
That's
at something,
exactly, that's exact. And I always, when we're driving through some rural area, my wife's always kind of like, this looks quite a squirrel. I'm like, no, this is America right here.
I'm like, oh no, that is the blade, that is the gun behind every blade. And when I go to northern New Hampshire, I'm like, it is 808 months out of the year. My whole family lives up there, and they're all, it's nothing. They're fine. And anyone else, you'd be like, oh, you'd immediately be killed. Ice packs and snow and melt. But you go, so you really can't overthrow the whole world. And it's almost like it's coded into God's creation of like,
it is.
you can
It is.
you can control your hometown, because the people that want to control your hometown are probably from your hometown, and they all have the same interests. What you can't do is you can't control the jungles of Vietnam, you can't control the DMC in Korea, you can't control the oil fields in Saudi Arabia, you can't do all of that. And I truly think that's God's plan. Is you can't run the whole world, because those that want to run the whole world should not run the whole world. So what we're seeing is it's these desperate things of to blow up your phone. What is that really? Okay, sure, it's a 0-day exploit. You can't use that again. But what is it really? They want you to really think twice about using your phone, which tells you that, man, they're now not sure about you. They're now scared of you having a phone. Like, dude, that is not the actions of a strong regime. Don't touch your phone, it'll blow up. Yeah, probably not. I doubt it.
Well, the other part of that is the depopulation effort is the first part of that. The kill off is done. Now the cancer kill off from the spike protein is underway. So the depopulation effort is going nicely. The repopulation effort is underway with all the third worlders coming in who will service the fields and be good serfs, because they're used to being good serfs. But even that's not going to work as well, because those people of the land will eventually intermarry and work with the surviving peoples of the land. Because when they get here, they're not going to know how to grow stuff here. So you know who they're going to have to ask? They're going to have to ask the farmers for generations, because farming is a wise profession. You got to know it. And so those conversations are going to, by nature, build rapport among those. So, because I had my event recently, the Great American Meetup, and one of the ladies asked me, "What are we going to do about all the illegals?" I'm like, we're not going to be able to deport them any more than American can be disarmed. It just can't happen.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do? We're going to co-opt them.
Yeah.
Because they are going to have to adjust not just to the physical terrain, but they're going to have to adjust to the human terrain here as well. Uh, and so again, the deep state masters lose, which doesn't mean millions aren't killed and sacrificed. And
Oh, it'll still be bad.
yeah,
They'll kill me. They'll blow me up. I don't care. They're whatever. That'll just make my podcast even cooler. The last episode will just it'll be that's how it will end. I always say the last
hey, I had Jake Lang was supposed to be on. He didn't come on because they threw him back in the cooler. And and as soon as he got out of the cooler, he called me like, "I'm sorry, they threw me into solitary." I'm like, "Jake, it's okay." He's like, "Can we do this now?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it now." So I mean, so what
Yeah.
did that do? That just built the resistance even more.
Exactly. And it's so like, and then I guess lastly, and we're coming up in an hour, so we'll wrap it up. But lastly is like, I always try to look at it in terms of world history and ego. And I mean, how egocentric is it for me to think that it's ending in my lifetime? And I'm not saying that there aren't dire threats. They are. But I mean, all of human history. I mean, I read a book about it's called Empire of the Sky, and it was about Zeppelins in the early 1900s in Germany wanted to turn them into war machines. And the people writing about them, like, and not idiots, but like these like proteges of Otto von Bismarck were like, once we master the Zeppelin, history will come to an end, for we will just fly far above the range of muskets and enact our will on the world. Can you imagine someone with like a geared up Goodyear blimp now? You'd be like, what's this idiot doing? No, we're on sixth generation drone fighters with, thermal cloaks and spoofing radars and energy weapons from orbit. Or the Fukuyama thing, I think that's the name, after the Soviet Union fell and said, we're truly at the end of history. The American empire will grow and it will prune off resistance around the world.
Replace Zeppelin with AI, and you're there.
Yeah, or before Zeppelin. Man, this what was it called? The Arquebus, the first musket. They're like,
Yeah.
this is no longer will we be fighting with swords. The Arquebus is capable of shooting a slug over 100 yards at a rate of over 10 times an hour. Huh? I could I could rule the world with a bat if I went back 10,000 years. Like, so that's how I try to look at it, is in terms of ego. So it's the end now. Supercomputers and, kill bots from orbit. It will one day be viewed as comically as we view Zeppelins. And how long did Zeppelins last? They didn't even get to the end of World War One. They were like, hey man, these things are full of hydrogen and they just light on fire. We got to cut the shit out. Like, the Americans are flying around in biplanes with pistols. Like,
Well, they started in the Civil War, so
yeah, the hot air balloons. Yeah, no, they yeah. And so that's, I guess, how I also try to look at it, is like, regardless of like how I feel or anything, I just try to look at the 100,000 million foot view. And I'm like, it's never the end of history. It
no,
doesn't
and that's
even.
great, and that's
Yeah.
why you're doing a great job, and because I'm an old guy, you're a young guy, but you have a great understanding of what's going on, and you just need to continue to pass that on
Yes, sir.
to even younger generation.
Hmm.
That really is I think your task, and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
keep executing that. That's
Yeah,
great.
no. I know my job will be complete either when a Hellfire missile comes through the window, or when one day and my show is successful beyond my wildest dreams and on episode 5,000. One day I need to see another upcoming show. They're like, that old guy Tommy who always talking about, and I'll be like, I've done it. I'll see some other guy with an American flag screaming about this, that, and the other thing, and I'll be like, I can lay down and die. I have done my part. I have done my, and that's what will happen. So, you know, regardless of ethics and morals and the fact that they are pedophiles and demon worshippers, aside from all those glaringly obvious reasons to be on the side of God, even just as a betting man, when you go and roll the roulette thing, what are you, do you really feel like you're gonna choose red or black, or are you gonna choose a specific number? You're not gonna choose a number. You're gonna choose a color because you're like, I'm at least going with the 50-50. So just, even as a betting man, do I think that we're at the end? No. How stupid would you have to be? You can find it written on like Assyrian tablets where it's like, have you ever seen that? It's literally written in like cuneiform. And somebody wrote in like 14,000 BC. It was like something along the line, translated, of course, but something along the lines of children don't respect their elders. Like, truly, we are at the end. like pre-wheel, and they thought they were at the end. And you're like, dog, no, it goes forever. So that's my motivational speech. But Mr. Prather, let's wrap this one up. Thank you so much for your time. It's always an honor having you on here. I love talking to you. You're a cool dude. I appreciate it.
Right back at you, Tommy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Prather, you have a wonderful day, guys. Please go in the description. Please go follow this podcast. Please subscribe to everything and buy the books and all that good stuff. Don't make me look like an idiot. Thank you so much. Until next